this video, we are going to go over 17 different tips that you can use as a Fortnite mobile player so that you can continue to get better at the game. This includes stuff all the way from updating your settings to changing your HUD, even how to optimize your game, including that stupid lag, so that you can continue to get better at the game and perform better over and over again. Let's go ahead and get into number one. Tip number one for becoming a better Fortnite mobile player is to turn off freaking auto fire. I know a lot of people get judged a lot for having auto fire on. I turned mine off a very long time ago, and for good reason. Here's a couple of quick tips on why auto fire should be turned off. Number one is it's gonna mess up your game a lot. I know that sounds silly, but it almost jams your gun in some instances. I used to have auto fire when I first downloaded the game well over a year and a half ago. And what happened was whenever I would go to shoot, and it would automatically shoot at an enemy, but then when I would try to shoot at like their builds or something else around them, then it would kind of like jam up the gun. Like it wouldn't shoot for me when I would click on it. And sometimes when I would go to click and the auto fire would click in at the same time, it just wouldn't shoot at all. So it's messing up your game. Not to mention the fact that it won't improve your skill level. Trust me on this. When I switched from auto fire to tap to fire and shoot on my own, my skill level went up quite a bit. Not just because, I was able to rely on myself to figure out that skill, but also because I was able to hone in on when's the best time to be shooting, and I wasn't automatically shooting at opponents that I was trying to sneak up on. That's also a downside to having auto fire set up. Tip number two to becoming a better Fortnite mobile player is customize your HUD. Customizing your HUD is super easy and simple. At a click of a button, you can already have it all laid out in front of you so that you can figure out where you want to put your buttons. Make it your own and figure out what works for you. But here's a couple of quick tips to help you do that. Number one is have your shoot and edit buttons towards the top. This really only works if you're playing with claw, which I'll talk more about later on in this video, but I just think that that's one way that I've been able to improve, definitely. Tip number two to optimize your HUD is try to get it so that your thumbs are only looking around and moving. Your thumbs should only have one purpose each. And then you can use your other fingers to do other buttons and other actions so that your thumbs can really help you to continue to move and constantly be looking. This helps you to continue to get better at the game so that you can have better awareness of what's going on around you. Another tip for optimizing your HUD is separate your combat and your build buttons. So instead of having it so that you have to push a button to switch between your build and your combat buttons, you can actually have it so they're all laid out on your screen all the time. So even if you're building and you have like your floor out, you can automatically switch to your shotgun, and vice versa. If you have your AR out, you can instantly start to put a cone or a wall if you're getting shot at. So it's nice that you don't have to click a button and then another button just to put up a wall to save your ass. It's good to be able to have that up right away and as quickly as possible. A lot of people have been commenting asking to see my HUD. It's a little bit hectic, but sure. Tip number three to becoming a better Fortnite mobile player is to play with claw. Claw is basically when you play with more than just your thumbs on the screen, you're playing with multiple fingers. This can be 3, this can be 4, and this can be all the way up to all 10. Now I know that if you're playing on an actual phone, that seems pretty impossible, but let me just tell you that when I played on a phone, which was very recent ago, I was playing with 8 fingers. Now I did use triggers, which I will talk about later on in this video, but I just want to let you know claw is totally possible if you're only on a phone. If you're on an iPad, you have a little more real estate space and area for you to be able to play around with and use for claw, but definitely I want to recommend no matter what device you're playing on, using claw can actually improve your gameplay exponentially. Tip number 4 to help you improve as a Fortnite mobile player is figure out what you're bad at. Here's one way that you can do that. By going into your game, what I would recommend is you go to creative and you run through courses. The thing you hate the most when you're running through the courses is probably the thing that you need to work on the most. For instance, I first created my own edit course a long time ago when I switched to claw so that I could get better at it because I knew it was going to be very hard and frustrating. So I created my own edit course. I ran through the edit course over and over again, and I can tell you right now, the 2 areas that I hated the absolute most, actually 3 if I'm being totally honest with myself. First, it was the waterfall area. Second, it was the tunneling area. And then third, it was the ramp rush area where I had to block with codes to make it so that bots wouldn't shoot at me. Those were the 3 areas that I hated the most. And those were also the areas that I was the absolute worst at. So these are the things that I started to work on. I worked on waterfalls. I worked on trying to tunnel and figure out how I can get better at tunneling. And then finally ramp rushing, where I had to block off shots that were coming at me as I was trying to go forward and up. So I worked on those things, and then as I went through the course again afterwards, I started to realize that not only was I quicker at them, but I enjoyed them a little bit more too. You can go through the Sweats Edit course, which will help you figure out what you're good at, what you're bad at, what you could really use some work on, and then you can start to work on those things and then start to run through the course a few more times to continue to get better overall. So tip number 4 is figure out what you're bad at and then just start working on it like crazy. Tip number 5 to becoming a better Fortnite mobile player is use Edit Unreleased. Edit Unreleased is an actual button that you can put on your HUD to make it so that you can, when you go to edit any kind of wall, ramp, floor, any kind of builds, if you go to edit it and then you edit again, it automatically resets it for you. So you don't have to click on another button to reset a wall. Once you go to edit a button or edit a wall that's already been edited, then it's going to reset it for you. So you can instantly go to edit a new edit, if that makes sense. I use the word edit so many times. So use Edit Unreleased. It helps so much and it saves a lot of time. I do feel like there's a couple of downsides to using Edit Unreleased, but if I were to weigh the pros and cons of it, honestly, it's so much more beneficial than not using it. So definitely recommend using Edit Unreleased. Tip number 6 to becoming better at Fortnite mobile is replace your reticle with a button. I've actually created a whole separate video on how you can take a button from your HUD and use it as the reticle. Basically what a reticle is it's the center of your screen, otherwise known as a crosshair. Replacing the reticle with a button is so beneficial. Definitely go and check out my other video on how to set this up because it's definitely improved my aim and I think it can do the same for you. I explain why in that video as well. All right, moving on to tip number 7. At the very beginning of this video, I talked about how it is possible to do claw on a phone, but I understand how using it on a really small screen space can actually seem really limiting. So actually what I would recommend is trying out a trigger or a controller trigger. Now listen, if you're on iPad, this isn't necessarily for you. This is mostly for my mobile phones. Now, what I did when I was playing on mobile, I knew that I wanted to do claw, and I wanted to do it with as many fingers as possible because I knew that's what was going to help me get better. So what I did is I purchased this thing. This is called a trigger controller trigger. It's kind of similar to an actual controller that you would play with PS4 or with Xbox. But what it does is these little triggers here on the end, they actually click on the screen similar to how you would with your finger. So it's just like using a controller, but you're still playing on mobile. You're not playing on a controller at all. So here's how it works. You put your phone within the controller and then you're able to use the triggers in the back. You'll notice I'm using my middle fingers because I would do 4 in the front and 4 in the back. This allowed me to use 8 different fingers. You are limited though because each different trigger can only push one button, whereas your fingers can probably move around and use a bunch. So you do have to consider whether or not that's something that you want to do and try out, but I can tell you right now, I really enjoyed it. It's nice to have the grip similar to a controller, even though I'm not a controller player at all, other than maybe like my Gears of War days, like forever ago. But if you are going to try a controller, I definitely recommend trying out one with the triggers that has 4 triggers on top, so that even if you wanted to only try 6 fingers, so having these 2 in the back and then your thumbs up front to help you move, or you can switch over and try the 8 style like what I did. Triggers are amazing because they allow you to use more of your fingers and have more functionality and allows you to do more actions more quickly. There's the rundown on using triggers. Definitely use the link below. I'll link up some of the triggers that I've bought, and I've gone through 2 different brands and 2 different types. I definitely have my preference, but I'll link up to both so that you can give it a try yourself. Tip number 8 on how to become a better Fortnite mobile player is adjust settings to help your game lag. Lag is a huge problem on any platform that you play on, whether that's Switch, mobile, PS4, console, Xbox, or PC. You're gonna have lag in some way or another at some point. One thing I do want to say though is mobile is definitely the ones that have it the worst.
Alright. Oh, then.
Me. maybe Switch players can rival us a little bit on that, but mobiles, we struggle with this, and you know what I'm talking about because you probably have to deal with it a lot. Here's a couple of quick tips that you can use to better your lag, and don't worry, I'm gonna create a whole video on step-by-step how to do these things, as well as give you extra tips. But to get you started to increase and fix your lag a little bit, number one, I would recommend to don't have your storage be full on your phone or your iPad, whatever device you're playing on. I've noticed that whenever my storage was full and I was using up all of my gigs, that it made it so that my game would lag a whole lot more. And then when I would free up some space, it seemed to go away, or at least to be lessened. So that's one thing you can do, is go through and delete some photos or some apps on your phone to make it so that you're not using up your maxed amount of storage, or at least a little bit less, and that'll make it so that your phone can lag a little bit less as well. Another thing you can try doing is if your phone is just continuing to lag over and over and over again, you can't seem to get it to stop, you can actually try just restarting your device. Restarting my device would actually help quite a few times. And I don't just mean closing out the app. I mean actually closing out the app, turning off your phone or your iPad, and then turning it back on. This can make a really big difference, and when you load back in, you're gonna have to sit there and wait for it to optimize, but after that, your game will probably be a whole lot better for a few games. Another tip that you can use to help lag on your phone or iPad is adjust your graphics. My graphics, honestly, were terrible when I was on a phone, because I would rather have a higher FPS and be able to have less lag than to be able to look and have things look pretty, which really sucks, I know, but if you want less lag, this is probably something that you could be willing to give up. What you do is you go into your settings and you reduce graphics. I would say to put your graphics down just incrementally and try and figure out what works best for you. Try this out and just test with it and change it as you go to see which one is reducing the lag the most without having to give up on as many graphics. And my final tip for being able to help with lag on your phone or iPad is definitely cool your device. When my device gets hot, whether I was on a phone or an iPad, it was done. It started lagging like crazy. My FPS would drop like crazy. It was not fun at all. So what I would recommend is definitely get a case for your phone that has either a fan on it, or your iPad can have a fan on it. Or what I've done is, if you're playing with an iPad, I actually like to recommend getting a laptop fan that you can actually put your iPad on. This might seem a little silly, but it works perfect. And what's nice is I got a laptop stand that has a fan on it, so that when I play it on my iPad, I can just set my iPad on that in my lap, and it propped it up for me too. So I didn't have to hold up my iPad while I was playing, and I could play with all the fingers that I wanted to without crushing and killing my hands, and it would keep my device cool. So definitely try and use a fan. There's other cooling devices and tools and equipment that you can try using, but do whatever you can to keep your device cool, because it will definitely make a difference. Also, if you're playing with any kind of a case, I would recommend taking the case off when you play your game, because this thing holds in the heat, unfortunately. Tip number 9 for how to become a better Fortnite mobile player: change your sensitivity. I can't tell you how many times I've changed my sensitivity over and over again just in the past 6 months. And dramatic changes too. And we all know that changing your sensitivity on mobile, or really on any platform, is almost as bad as changing keybinds on PC. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of change, and it can definitely throw your game off. But I can tell you right now, by changing those sensitivity, it can actually make a really big difference in your gameplay overall. I would definitely recommend trying it out. A couple of quick things that you can do to better your sensitivity is lower some of the overall settings, so like the touch sensitivity, lower that. I definitely like to have my building and editing as high as I possibly can. I've played around with that a lot, trying to lower it, but I always come back to having that maxed out for both build and edit. I really like to edit very quickly, and having my builds being able to move and look around very quickly can make a really big difference. On the flip side though, my overall touch sensitivity and maybe my vertical, I like to have lower. It makes a really big difference. Same with scope sensitivity as well. Tip number 10 to becoming a better Fortnite mobile player is make your buttons smaller. This one one I definitely struggle with right now because I switched over to an iPad, and when you switch to a different device, you want your buttons larger so you stop misclicking all the damn time. But I do want to say that especially if you're on a phone, you want to have your buttons be a lot smaller. Now here's a quick tip. You can actually make them smaller without making them actually actively smaller. What I mean by that is you can actually make it so that you can touch anywhere around them and still have them activate. You do this by lowering and making them smaller, but allowing them to take up more surface area. This helps a lot because you can make it so that you can visually see more while still having the functionality of using your buttons. Tip number 11 to being a better Fortnite mobile player is use thumb sleeves. They're honestly one of the best things that I've ever done as far as playing on mobile and trying to optimize my gameplay. I bought these a very long time ago and I never went back. They look silly. They look like something I get made fun of all the time whenever I'm playing and wearing these, but I'm telling you right now, they make a difference. And anyone I've ever recommended to try them out tried them and then never went back. They're really easy to get. They're only about $7 on Amazon, and you can get quite a few of them within a package for that. So I definitely recommend trying it out. Basically what a thumb sleeve does is it allows you to move around your screen a lot more smoothly, and it doesn't actually have like more of that friction between your thumb and the screen. I like this too because, as we all know, our fingers can get a little sweaty. Tip number 12 for how to become a better Fortnite mobile player is run through edit courses. I mentioned this at the beginning of the video and I'm gonna mention it again. Run through edit courses. It doesn't have to be the Sweats edit course, which is actually a course that I created myself. Find a course that works for you and that you really like, and then just go through it over and over and over and over again. I promise you it makes a difference. Anytime that I change my sensitivity or change my HUD, I hop into an edit course and I just run through it over and over and over again so that I can train my mind to get used to the new sensitivity and to where the new buttons are so that I can have that muscle memory down. Using edit courses can really make a big difference in how well you play and continuing to get better. And of course, if you'd like to try out my Sweats edit course, please feel free to. I definitely would love for you to try it out and let me know what you think. I designed this way back when I switched over to Claw, and I can tell you right now, I've used it hundreds and hundreds of times, and I've recommended it to my friends and they enjoy it as well. The code for it is, of course, down in the description. Tip number 13 of how to become a better Fortnite mobile player is have a warm-up strategy. Whether that's with an edit course or something else, I definitely recommend to figure out what you need to work on and what you can do to warm up and get better. I've actually realized that when I jump into games or when I jump into maybe 1v1 with somebody who I really sincerely want to beat and I haven't warmed up yet, it makes a difference. Whereas when I warm up, I tend to be a lot more fluid and ready, and my reaction time is a whole lot better as well. My recommendation for a warm up is to take about 10 to 30 minutes each time you hop on Fortnite to warm up. I would tweak it over time and just figure out what works for you, but I personally like to jump into my edit course, run through that maybe 3 or 4 times, and then I jump into another island where I can practice more on and focus on my aim as well as specific edits that I want to do, and of course just do some free building so that I can, get warmed up on that as well. So have a warm-up strategy, tweak it over time, figure out what works for you, and then do it every time at least 10 minutes before you hop into a normal game or start playing with a friend. And I can tell you right now, you'll notice a difference and they will too. Tip number 14 of how to become a better Fortnite mobile player is jump into solo games. This includes solo duos, solo squads, and drop hot. I mean hot. I mean go to the very first hot drop possible and drop right off the bus as quickly as possible. Get there first and be the first to start battling it out. I know that this can be frustrating at first. I know that a lot of people are going to say, a lot of other people say to do this, but I don't think it really works. I can tell you right now it does. When I was trying to get better at Fortnite, and I still am trying to, honestly, whenever I'm trying to improve my skills and it's not working in creative, then what I'm doing is I'm going to solo games, whether that's solos, solo duos, or solo squads. I like to jump in and I go straight to hot. I don't go to the sides of the map or the outermost corners. I go to wherever I think there's going to be the most amount of people, and I just go straight there as quickly as I can, loot up, and then I just start battling it out. I really love the Fortnite Chapter 2 Season 2 because these new areas, these new locations, the new POIs, have a lot of people dropping there right now, especially in the center of the map at the agency. There's always people there and there's always a lot, and not to mention the fact there's also the henchmen, so it gives you a lot of opportunities to battle it out and to keep fighting, and plus people rotate there, so you're constantly battling and trying out new things and able to practice not only your shooting skills but your editing and your building so that you can loot quickly and get your fundamentals down for your game. Tip number 15 on how to be a better Fortnite mobile player is end every game with 2 things. Now, Before I even get into this, I just want to say, I know how cheesy this is going to sound. I get it. But I'm telling you right now, this makes a difference. This is something that I adapted for myself, and I introduced it to my duo partner for arena, who I do like tournaments with, and he really enjoyed it. And we do this every single time we end an arena game, or if we're in the middle of a tournament, every time we finish a round, we sit and talk about these two things. Ready? Number one, what did you do right? So what are you awesome at? How are you badass? How did you outplay that other person? How did you make it so that you made the other person cry back to the lobby? Number two, what did you suck at? What could you have improved on? And how can you be better in your next game? Listen, again, I know how cheesy this sounds and how silly it could seem, but I'm telling you, it makes a difference. If you go into a game and you go, I did this right. I did really, really well. I want to continue to do that. It pumps you up and gets you ready for the next game, whether that's an arena, tournament, or even just pub games. Or even if you're in creative, battling of friends in a 1v1 or box fights, it helps you to go, okay, I did this really well. I am good at this game. And it allows you to have a better mentality. Mentality is so much. I can't even explain to you how much my confidence equals how well I play. Tip number 16 on how to become a better Fortnite mobile player: play in box fights, zone wars, and 1v1s. These are amazing because you're able to practice over and over and over and over and over again. So even if you die, you don't have to wait to load into a new game. I like to spend some time doing these, but honestly, I don't like to focus on them. I do these maybe a few times a week where I'll jump into a lobby that's creative and we'll do some box fights with the group or with some friends, or I'll do 1v1 with friends, mostly just a nice friendly one just so that I can, practice different build styles, practice different ways to get one up on the opponent, and even how to edit better. So definitely want to change that. You need really good game sense too. So that's why I like to say to practice these things, do box fights and do 1v1s and do zone wars to your heart glory. I know some people love the heck out of those, but you need good game sense. And by game sense, I mean jumping into a pub game and understanding that if your opponent does this, you need to do that. Like, you need to know what actions to take against what they're doing. And a lot of that you can't actually learn in doing box fights. While you can learn some things, being in an actual game changes a lot of the different aspects, including the environment, as well as whether or not you have loot, whether or not you have good loot. Whereas when you're in zone wars or box fights, you always know you have good guns, you always know you have mats, you always know so many things are certain. Whereas in a game, you have so many different variables that you have to play with and manage. So you have to have good game sense of how to manage those things and get better at the game as you're doing it. Tip number 17 to becoming a better Fortnite mobile player is get higher FPS. This is probably the most annoying one you're gonna hear. Duh, how the heck am I supposed to do that? I put this at the very end because I wanted to share with you how you can improve on your skill, how you can have a better mentality, how you can continue to get better at the game, but I wanted to include this. So I left it, towards the end. So here's how you can get better FPS. Get a better device. And again, I know so many people out there are going, okay, well, I can't do that, or I don't have the means to, or my mom and dad don't love me. They love you, I promise. You can get it by yourself. So here's what you can do. I started out with this playing on a 6S Plus iPhone. If you're playing on a 6 or a 7 phone, I'm so sorry. I feel your pain. I would actually recommend trying your hardest to upgrade and do whatever you can to do that. Definitely work on trying to get better FPS. If you can upgrade your phone or your iPad, I definitely recommend to try doing that. I know that one's kind of a push if you rely on somebody else to purchase things for you, such as if you have a parent and you need them to buy it for you. I just want to say one thing. You don't have to wait for them to buy it for you. There's so many different ways that you can earn the money. I would even say go to them and say, hey, I really want this, and I'm gonna do whatever I need to do it. I would love it if I could earn it from you, or if you could tell me how I can do that. I can tell you right now that if your parent heard that, they would instantly go, okay, I can see the determination. I can see that they want to make this happen, and they're willing to do whatever they need to and to do the work to make it happen. They're not just expecting me to get it for them. They're gonna respect that, and they're gonna help you be able to figure it out, especially if you can go to them and say, hey, if I earn half of this, can you can you pay for the other half? Just a quick tip. Try that out next time. Now that we've gone through all 17 tips to becoming a better Fortnite mobile player, I wanna give you one more final bonus tip real quick here at the end. Watch others play, which you probably already do. I'm definitely a Twitch fan. I love watching Twitch. I love watching YouTube. YouTube's actually my favorite place to be. Constantly have it playing in the background. Definitely sit down and watch some other players play and really analyze their style and what they're doing and how they're reacting. This is really important. Watch what they do and how they react in response to what their opponent is doing. Like for instance, if their opponent builds up, do they build up too, or do they box up? If their opponent is shooting, do they start trying to 50-50 that person and shoot back, or do they block and build up? And that's going to help you realize what you can maybe try and what you can adapt to your own play style so that you can continue to get better too. Don't let the myth of mobile players suck get to be your mantra. You can change that. You can increase your FPS, you can have better frame rate, you can actually work on improving your skills and becoming better and better at the game so that you can compete with console players and with PC players sometimes even too, and continue to get better at the game. Not to mention it's just fun as hell just to get better and to enjoy a game that you actually want to spend your time on. I hope that these 17 tips were really helpful for you. I hope that you're able to apply some of them. I would absolutely love it if you could comment below. Let me know which one was your favorite and which one you've actually tried out and it worked for you. I would love to hear that. Also, please feel free to subscribe because we're going to continue to create more and more videos just like this to help you become better at the game on a mobile device. Keep killing it, and I'll speak with you soon.